Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. My name is Juggi Bhasin. So one of the strangest, one of the weirdest press conferences happened in Canada yesterday. I think it was in Ottawa, where the RCMP, that is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Commissioner, that is Michael Dume, and the Assistant Commissioner, Bridget Govin, they did a joint press conference where they accused the Indian government, specifically Indian diplomats in Ottawa, of carrying on activities, espionage activities against Canadian citizens, of targeting Canadian citizens. Specifically, they mentioned pro-Khalistani groups in Canada. Now, I'll tell you what is so strange and what is so weird about these pronouncements of these RCMP top officers. The fact is, when one government accuses another government of clandestine activities, of illegal activities, then those accusations are government to government, in the sense that diplomats accuse diplomats of carrying on some activity, or at the most you say that your intelligence agencies are carrying on some subvertive or subversive activities against the other country, or even the armed forces of a country are carrying on activities against a second country. But it is absolutely rare, it is absolutely bizarre, I would even say, that a foreign government Sunday does a press conference where the police chief of that government, the RCMP, is a police organization at the end of the day. It is not an intelligence organization in that sense. A police organization accuses a sovereign, independent, democratic country of these activities. That is the first very, very bizarre thing. And that also, the accusation being that the foreign government, in this case India, is backing the Lawrence Bishnoi gang and supporting these gang related activities, criminal activities within quotes, that's the word they use, criminal activities against Canadian citizens. It is absolutely rare, bizarre, completely out of place. But the second point, which I think a lot of people have missed, which needs to be noticed also, is that these two officers of the RCMP, they use the word pro-Khalistani groups in Canada. Now, what does that mean? It literally means that the Canadian government is giving complete legitimacy to the pro-Khalistani groups in Canada. Normally, if there are separatist group in a particular country, even supposing when it comes to, let's say, Pakistan, we might have our serious, very serious differences with Pakistan. But the Indian government doesn't go around openly saying, oh, we support the separatist aspirations of the Baluchi people. I mean, of course, you could be doing it clandestinely and all that, but you don't openly go on making pronouncements like that. But this is what exactly the Canadian government or the police force of Canada did yesterday, where they lovingly almost said, oh, it's our citizens, our people, out here, that is the pro-Khalistanis who are being targeted. Which means that you are supporting Khalistan, which means that you are supporting a clandestine, illegal activity against a democratic sovereign nation. This is what Canada did yesterday. So these two things were completely shocking, but I'm going to argue in this podcast today that it did not stop at that. This, to my mind, is part of a larger, a very big game plan which is ultimately targeted at Punjab. All this goes towards Punjab to create massive unrest in Punjab, and I'm going to show that, and I'm going to argue about that to all of you in this particular podcast. But before I do that, as always, I would urge all of you to subscribe to my channel, that is the CAA Show. It's very simple, really. Press on that red button on your screen. Subscription is, of course, completely free. And also would really appreciate if you could like the show and share this video with your friends and your colleagues. Now, let's try and take our attention away from the RCMP press conference, which was bizarre as it was, and then focus a little bit on this the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Justin Trudeau. And I am, of course, laughing because that's what a lot of people would do when they realize the actions of this man. And therefore, it begs the question that what exactly is Mr. Justin Trudeau really up to? What exactly is he trying to prove? What is the point he's trying to prove? It also begs the question that how do we treat Justin Trudeau? Do we treat him in a very non-serious way? Do we take him as somebody who's completely, in one sense, some would even say completely, has gone off kilter, who's kind of a little bit off balance at the moment? Because these particular acquisitions which have come at this point in time have come out of nowhere. Things had actually settled down into some kind of an uneasy, quiet peace between the two countries. Nothing much was happening, and people were hoping that the relationship was mending, that it was a little better than before. And then out of nowhere, Mr. Justin Trudeau, his government makes these acquisitions and these remarks. So the first point being that do we treat him in a non-serious manner? That's the first point. Number two, the other way of looking at it is a lot of people are also arguing that these are nothing but the pronouncements of a man who is probably a closet white racist. That acquisition also has to be looked into, because his father certainly can be said that man actually had made similar pronouncements and judgments in the past, and especially that major decision which he took, that he could not give back the bombers of the Kanishka aircraft, because, as he said, there is no such thing which happens in Commonwealth countries, and he has to take the permission of the Queen and all those excuses. That, of course, puts his father in a different league, but I am arguing that both father and son actually are in that same kind of league. So that again is a point of contention. We can think about that. And then the other thing which a lot of people are arguing about Justin Trudeau is that he's a very insecure politician. He's on a very, very shaky footing at the moment. His party is not doing well at all. His biggest supporter, that is the Khalistani, that is Juggi Bhasin, has withdrawn support, and he probably wants him back. He wants the support of these Khalistani elements. That's another point we can think about contention. But all these might be true. But I think the single biggest reason why the Canadian government, why they have used the RCMP to go ahead with this absolutely bizarre press conference, there is a larger design behind it. There is a larger game plan behind it. There is something else in the works which is behind it. I'm going to talk about all that in this particular podcast. But before I do that, let's try and understand the timing of these announcements of the RCMP. Timings which make you very, very suspicious of what is really going on, and is there a larger conspiracy at this? Normally, I'm not very gung-ho about all these conspiracy theories, but in this case I also feel that there is something which is going on behind the scenes. There are other forces which are at work, and probably Mr. Justin Trudeau, and that's the point which I'm contending in my podcast, is probably being used as a chess piece. He's being used as a proxy to push the vested interests of some of the major powers in the world to browbeat India, to create very difficult conditions in India, probably even with the target of even bringing about a regime change in India. I'm going to discuss all that in a moment. But let's talk of the timing. The timing is very, very interesting. These so-called exposes of the Canadian government, these so-called accusations of the Canadian government come at a time. They come at a time when the BJP very, very unexpectedly won the Haryana elections. They very, very unexpectedly, these acquisitions come at a time when all kinds of things are happening in the country. There are cylinders which are being found on rail tracks. There are trains which are crashing into goods trains. There are these telephonic calls. There are pieces of paper where threats are being made to Indian airliners, to Indian aviation, I would say, in the larger sense, which means that there is a targeting of Indian infrastructure which is going on. It comes at a very, very strange time when religious processions in this country are being stoned. Now we can all see what is happening for instance, in Bahrain. It has been a major communal conflagration. maybe a religious minority in the country is being goaded, it is being propelled into doing these kind of things. It comes at a time like that. And then let's not forget that other person who is creating problems in New Delhi, that is that is Sonam Wangchuk. He's on strike, and a lot of people feel that he could again be a proxy, a chess piece moved by certain foreign powers, certain foreign intelligence agencies to foment trouble, especially in Ladakh, in that part of the world which has been very, very quiet, which has been very peaceful, which has been so pro-India all along. They are nationalists even more than people, I would say, in the hinterland. But suddenly there comes across this person like Sonam Wangchuk, who's creating all these problems with his demands for autonomy in the name of environmental protection. But the timing is very peculiar. The timing is very strange. We have to take that into cognizance. And then let's not forget the timing. Let's extend this a little bit more. There are 2 or 3 other important things which are happening. This Bangladesh thing, for instance. Now, India has now very firmly spoken up against the persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh. So the timing again, this timing, the Bangladesh government has obviously reacted very negatively to us. Relations between Bangladesh and India right now are not at all good. Internally, Bangladesh is in huge strife after that regime change, which again a lot of people think was brought upon by elements of the deep state. It's like a free fall in Bangladesh right now. The textile industry, by all accounts, is folding up. There is unrest on the streets. The students are certainly not happy. A lot of people are wishing that maybe Sheikh Hasina was not so bad after all. So there are all kinds of things which are going on in Bangladesh, and they are taking out in their pronouncement their frustrations against India. Relationship is not good out there. And then let's talk a little bit about Manipur. Look at the timing there. Something very significant is happening, that the Home Ministry is poised now to hold a meeting with all the factions in Manipur, that is the Kukis, the Meiteis and other factions also which are in Manipur, to try and bring peace in Manipur. Some kind of uneasy calm has settled down in Manipur, and then these announcements are coming. And that's what I'm saying. There is so much which is going on in the country at the moment. There is this churn which is going on within the country. And then, of course, the very important elections of Maharashtra. Though, if you really ask me, I think given the importance of elections in various states, I think the Haryana elections, to my mind, were the most important, probably even more important actually than Maharashtra, even more important than Jharkhand, I would say, because Haryana, along with Delhi and Punjab, actually holds the key to what is going on in North India. From that point of view, I'm talking about, though everybody knows Maharashtra is a very, very important state. It is the most industrialized state in the country, and therefore winning Maharashtra for the BJP would, of course, be a very, very big priority. But again, the timing. And also, please remember the communal conflagration which has happened in Bharej yesterday, and which has been unprecedented in the sense, the kind of sloganeering which was used out there. The young man who was killed out there, he was shot 20 times. Where did these arms come from? Who are the people who are firing out there? Who are the people who were stone pelting, almost on the lines of the stone pelting which has happened long back, if you remember, in Kashmir, the stone pelting which has been happening in Bangladesh? This stone pelting was actually on those lines. So there are lot of these developments which are taking place in our country, and then on top of that comes these announcements by the RCMP, by the Canadian government, out of nowhere. They actually have caught everyone by surprise. Though I personally feel that these things have been in the works for quite some time. So that is the timing of these announcements. Now let's talk of the real issue, which is the real issue of this podcast today. That what exactly is the Canadian government really up to? What exactly is the game plan out there? I think we need to figure this out, and I think I'm now advancing my own theory as to what really could be the real reasons why the Canadian government has made these announcements. I think there has been a larger game plan to destabilize the country. the destabilization, especially from North Indian states of Haryana and Punjab. Because there was a very big fear, I think, in Delhi that Delhi, of course, being with the Aam Aadmi Party, and if Haryana elections were lost, then and please remember that Punjab also is under the Aam Aadmi Party rule. And if Haryana was lost, then there was every possibility there could be a banding of forces, uniting of forces of all these protests. And all these protesters, lakhs and lakhs of them, could reach Delhi and literally choke Delhi, literally put an end to governance in Delhi. And in that sense, whether we like it or not, though India is a very, very big country, but Delhi is the fulcrum of the country. Delhi is the pivot on which the country moves. And if you disturb the pivot, if you disturb the axis on which this pivot moves, then everything comes to a standstill. Then there is destabilization, and probably that was a game plan. And therefore, I think forces, anti-national forces, were in harness, especially in Punjab. They were waiting for the Haryana elections. They were waiting for a non-BJP government, probably a Congress government, to take over in Haryana. Then these forces could have been galvanized into action. I'm pretty sure about that. So it's like a pincer movement which moves towards Delhi, and Delhi becomes helpless, and governance in Delhi actually almost comes to a standstill. Parliament also could have been geared out. Who knows? I mean, it could have gone to any extent. And these are not wild conspiracy theories which I'm talking about. These are probabilities which were in all likely, which are not only have happened, there has been a kind of a happening of these probabilities earlier. They could have happened, but on a much larger scale now. But fortunately, by some fantastic political rearguard action by the BJP and the RSS combined, that Haryana was saved, Haryana was won over. But Punjab is still not out of the woods. Punjab is still a point which can erupt any time, and here I think that the Canadians might just have a role to play. And how do they have a role to play? Let me expand on my theory. See, what is happening is, if you have watched this press conference yesterday of the RCMP, this was a press conference where literally, as I said, the two bizarre things. Number one, that is a police force is making an accusation against a sovereign country, against the fourth largest economy in the world. A police force what? It's like Delhi police, which is suddenly does a press conference and make accusations against America. It would be as ridiculous as that. It was as ridiculous as that the RCMP would do that. It was not even the proper diplomats or the politicians of the Canadian government that were making a press conference. It was the police force. And then what they are doing is they are dragging down India to the level of gang activities, that India nudges in or pushes these gang members. And the laughable thing is, Lawrence Bishnoi suddenly has become like a super Mr. Dawood, who's all over. He is assassinating Baba Siddiqui. He is assassinating Nijjar. He is trying to assassinate Pannu in America. Mr. Lawrence Bishnoi is like this super godfather, Marlon Brando, whatever you want to call it, who's like organizing all this, and the Indian government merrily is backing it. The whole thing was so bizarre, so ridiculous, so juvenile actually. But it has to be taken seriously. As I said, why does it have to be taken seriously is because what I think the Canadian government is trying to do through the officers of the RCMP, of their police forces, they are showing you a point of no return relations with India. Absolutely, it's clear in my mind, because I'm sure the Canadians would have factored in what would have been the response of the Indian government. Now, it does not matter whether we first expelled their High Commissioner or they expelled us or whatever. That is a matter of semantics. What really matters is that there are senior diplomats from both sides which are exiting, and it is not going to stop there. The Canadians have issued another threat, by the way. The foreign minister, that lady, has said that there is a possibility that we can even impose sanctions on India, which is again a very laughable thing. I mean, the fact is Canada is actually no great shakes as an economy or as a power or as a armed forces power. What kind of sanctions are you going to impose on India, which is laughable actually if you think about it. But what they are also signaling is that they have reached the point of no return. They don't want any good relations with India. Now what happens in that case? What really could happen is the trajectory could be, as we go forward, is that more and more statements are made by both sides, actions are taken, consulates closed down. Please remember there's a Canadian consulate in Chandigarh. Okay, we have a couple of consulates in Canada besides Ottawa, which service to the Indians which are going back and forth between India and Canada. These closed down. Eventually it might even lead to a probability. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could lead to a probability that even we break off diplomatic relationship with Canada. And then what really happens is there's a large diaspora of Indians in Canada, both the Hindus and the Sikhs. And among the Sikhs, as I said, there are certainly a small minority of these pro-Khalistanis. Most of the Sikhs, I don't think so, have anything to do with all this nonsense. But there certainly is a strong minority of these pro-Khalistani Sikhs. Now, none of these people can travel back and forth. So in such cases, what will, if something like this happens is then visas, then the going of back and forth. Trade obviously comes to a stop. Trade is a hostage. There could be a seizing of assets also, by the way. That could also be on the cards. Each side we could seize each other assets also. But if people want to travel, then they will have to go through the offices or maybe a small office of a third country, in a consulate, in the embassy for a third country, where both parties request that, okay, please access some little bit of visa. But that literally means, let's say, to give you a number, if 100 people want to come to, let's say, to India, then because there are hardly any people who are servicing these requests, then maybe 5 or 6 people would be able to come and go and back and forth. The numbers would be squeezed because there is nobody to attend to all these duties. That is what could be on the cards. Now, if that starts happening, then please understand there is a sizable number of Punjabi Sikhs who have migrated from Punjab to Canada, whether they are pro-Khalistani or they are against Khalistan, but they can't go back and forth freely between India and Canada, and obviously there's bound to be resentment. Okay, then number 2, there is a certain reality we have to face. There is a large body of students who are going back and forth between India and Canada. All access would be denied to them. That particular avenue would be closed. They would be obviously forced then to look at Great Britain, UK, to the America, to France, or Singapore and all these other countries, but Canada would be out of the system. That is also bound to create resentment. Now in Punjab, please understand the reality in Punjab, whether we like it or not, and this is a fault line which we have, a major fault line in Punjab. A lot of the youngsters even today, despite the fact that Canada is going through it's terrible times economically also, there's gang related activity which is like completely widespread. The gangs have taken over in Canada. Standards of living are falling. They don't have housing. They don't have adequate housing to actually house people. They're cutting back on a lot of these services. But despite that, a lot of the Punjab youth even today want to go to Canada. That also explains, by the way, that why so many of these of the Punjabi Sikh youngsters are converting to Christianity, because in a mistaken belief that you convert and you have a Christian sounding name, your chances of going to Canada brighten. So all these kind of strange vociferous activities are going on in Punjab. Now, if doors are completely shut to going to Canada, there could be unrest in Punjab. And this is what I think the Canadian government is banking upon. And this is what I think, that there are certain powerful interests, certain powerful intelligence agencies, certain powerful countries at the back who are pushing Canada to fulfill this particular role play. This, I think, is what is going on. And that is how, through the complete sealing of the relationship between India and Canada, unrest is created in Punjab amongst the Punjabi youth because they can't go back and forth. And in any case, also don't forget that whether these Khalistanis might protest or whatever they do, but they still want to come back to Punjab many times in the year. They have properties back in Punjab. All that would be stopped. And already, by the way, there are reports which are coming in that lakhs and lakhs of emails have already been exchanged warning people that bad times are coming. There has been a lot of communication which has been going back and forth between Canada and a lot of people in Punjab. That also has been happening. I think intelligence agencies are picking that up also. So this is, I think, a real fear. It's a fear which can actually materialize in the future if we don't play our cards right, if we don't handle this situation with deftness, with a certain bit of control, and it doesn't go completely out of control. So this I think is a game plan, and obviously it goes without saying, I don't want to name, but no prizes for guessing, there are certain major powers which are using Canada as a proxy to push ahead with this narrative. That is what really the game which is being played at the moment. So what does the Indian government have to do in such a scenario? The Indian government has to be, of course, we have to be tough, but we have to also keep an open mind at the same time. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that is that by all means, if the Canadians are obdurate, if they are flinging these wild allegations, they of course have to be countered. You have to expel their diplomats. All that has to be done. But I am saying that you still have to keep avenues open, because Canada is not Justin Trudeau and Justin Trudeau is not Canada. Please remember that. After Justin Trudeau, and he will go, eventually he will go, there will be others who will come in. We'll have to wait and see and take our chances what kind of new leadership comes in Canada. The democratic credentials of the two countries are still very strong. There is still a lot of commonality between the two countries, but I don't want to emphasize on that point in this particular podcast because things are really tough and bad at the moment. But what we really need to do is this: we need to keep 2 or 3 things in mind. This is also a very sensitive time for us because we have just concluded a major deal with the United States. That is the Predator deal. We only signed it only today. And this Predator deal is extremely important. It is worth about 35,000 crores because this will change the shape of our entire surveillance and attack configuration in the sky. This is absolutely needed. And assuming for a moment if the US is egging on Canada or whatever, we actually don't know about that, and it's I would say it's a little stupid to even start conjecturing or kind of putting motives out there. But we still have to handle this thing with care because we have to maintain our relationship with the United States, come what may. So that's the first thing we need to remember. And then the other thing we need to keep in mind is that we don't allow Canada, but I won't even use Canada. I would say we don't even allow Justin Trudeau to spoil our relationship with the other Western powers, especially with these Five Eyes or whatever these countries are called. Justin Trudeau will try that. There's no question about it. Now it's become a personal problem for him. Besides the larger, as I said, the geopolitical game, the chessboard, which is like moving, as we can all see. But it is also a personal problem for Justin Trudeau. But he will go all out to literally screw our relationship with other Western powers. We have to see to it that he's not allowed to do that. And in that capacity only and for nothing else, I do think that if nothing else, that at least for formality's sake, we have to take the opposition in our country on board. We have to confide in them what is our game plan. Even though there are parts of the opposition which could be actually part of this entire bigger conspiracy, I don't know about that. But still, for semantic sakes, for the sake of public appearances, and for doing the right thing, boxing the right things, we have to take the opposition on board. I think the government has to tell them that what exactly will be our Canada policy. We need to do that. And in conclusion, I would say that this is a very interesting, but this is a very difficult. It is a very, very tricky time. It's a tricky time because at the end of the day, Canada is, in the short term at least, it is finished as a destination either for tourism or for immigration or for even for trade or even for, for economic exchanges. Whether we like it or not, in the short term, Canada is is right now on par with Pakistan as an enemy country. It's that bad with Canada. We can't escape that, and hopefully, let's hope things improve in the future. And therefore, what we really need to do is that we have to handle the situation with deftness. We don't allow this becomes a wide Western narrative with all the Western countries think that India has completely, lost its head, or they think too much of themselves. We have to keep that balance also going. We have to show firmness, but at the same time, we need to show flexibility also in our relationships. But most important, we have to, as we say, cover our backsides. We have to look internally what is happening. We have to keep a very, very close watch on Punjab. There has to be some kind of an orientation programs, education programs, whatever, which are launched for the Punjabi youth, that we explain to them that Canada is no longer a viable destination or a place where you can emigrate, or a place you can go to work, or a place where you can go back and forth. That option has, completely closed. We have to educate the Punjabi youth in that, and therefore we have to take these steps and keep also the larger internal situation in mind, and also the larger geostrategic external situation in mind. Both challenges are there for the Indian government, and so, as I said, interesting times ahead, but also very, very dangerous times. And so on this note, I come to the end of this particular podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like the show, of course, subscribe to it. Until next time, it's goodbye and cheers from my end.